In the spring of 1848, revolution swept across Europe. In Germany, students and workers took to the streets. They demanded freedom, democracy, a unified nation. For a brief moment, it seemed possible. Then the old order fought back. And the dream collapsed. Thousands were arrested. Newspapers were shut down. Leaders were exiled. For many Germans, staying meant prison, or worse. So they left. Between 1848 and 1860, more than 1 million Germans fled to America. This is the story of one of them. His name was Friedrich Müller. He was 28 years old. A schoolteacher from Baden, in southwestern Germany. In 1848, he joined the revolution. Not as a soldier, but as a voice. He wrote articles for a democratic newspaper. He spoke at rallies. He believed in a free Germany. When the revolution failed, the government began hunting its supporters. Friedrich's newspaper was closed. His friends were arrested. He knew he was next. He had a wife, Johanna, and 2 young children. They had no money. No connections in America. No guarantee of safety. But staying in Germany meant certain imprisonment. So in the autumn of 1849, Friedrich made a choice. They would leave everything behind. And sail to America. They sold what little they had. Said goodbye to their families. And walked to the port of Bremen. The journey from Bremen to New York took 6 weeks. German emigrants traveled in the same conditions as the Irish, cramped ships, limited food, constant illness. But there was one difference. Many German emigrants were not fleeing starvation. They were fleeing tyranny. Friedrich and Johanna traveled with dozens of other German families. Some were farmers escaping poverty. Others were craftsmen seeking work. But many, like Friedrich, were 48 heirs. Political refugees. Dreamers who had fought for freedom and lost. The voyage was hard. Their children grew sick. Food ran out. The sea was unforgiving. But they survived. And in late autumn of 1849, Friedrich Müller saw the coast of America. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to hope. Friedrich's family arrived in New York in November 1849. But unlike many Irish immigrants, they did not stay. New York was crowded. Jobs were scarce. And Friedrich had heard of something else. Land. Free land, or nearly free, in the Western Territories. Thousands of German immigrants were heading west. To Ohio. To Wisconsin. To Illinois. Places where a man could own a farm. Build a house. Start fresh. Friedrich decided to follow them. They traveled by canal boat to Buffalo. Then by wagon across the wilderness. The journey took weeks. It was winter. The roads were frozen. Their money ran out. But in January of 1850, they reached their destination. A small settlement in southeastern Wisconsin. A place where Germans were building a new life. Here, Friedrich would stop running. Here, he would build. Friedrich Müller had been a teacher in Germany. In America, he became a farmer. He had no experience. No training. But he had no choice. This was the only path forward. With help from other German settlers, Friedrich cleared land and built a small cabin. He planted wheat. He raised chickens. He learned to survive. It was hard. The winters were brutal. The work was endless. But it was his. No king. No soldiers. No one to silence him. The German settlers built more than farms. They built communities. They founded churches. Opened schools where children learned in German. They brewed beer and celebrated Oktoberfest. In Wisconsin, entire towns became German-speaking. Milwaukee, Sheboygan, Watertown. These were not just American towns. They were German-American towns. Friedrich started teaching again, not politics this time, but reading and writing to the children of German immigrants. He never forgot the revolution. But he no longer needed to fight. In America, he had found what he had fought for in Germany. Freedom. Friedrich and Johanna had 4 more children in America. Their eldest son became a shopkeeper. Their daughter married a German farmer. By the 1880s, the Müller family was fully American, but still proudly German. But in 1914, everything changed. The First World War began. And suddenly, being German in America was dangerous. German-language newspapers were shut down. German schools were closed. Speaking German in public became suspicious. Some towns even changed their names to sound less German. Berlin, Michigan became Marne. Germania, Iowa became Lakota. German Americans were told to prove their loyalty. To abandon their language. Their culture. Their heritage. Most did. They stopped speaking German at home. They anglicized their names. They joined the American war effort. And slowly, the German identity faded. Not by choice, but by necessity. Friedrich Müller died in 1893, before the war began. He never saw his community pressured to forget where they came from. But his children did. And they adapted. Because that, too, is the immigrant story. Holding on, and letting go. Today, more than 40 million Americans claim German ancestry. It is the largest ancestry group in the United States. But you wouldn't always know it. Because unlike other immigrant groups, German Americans assimilated almost completely. They left behind their language. They changed their names. They became invisible. But traces remain. In the Midwest, in the towns they built. In the beer they brewed. In the farms that still stand. And in millions of families who carry German names, even if they no longer speak the language. Friedrich Müller came to America to escape a failed revolution. He found freedom. Not through politics. But through land. Through work. Through building a life from nothing. That was his revolution. And it succeeded. 1848 to 1860. Over 1 million Germans emigrated to America. They settled the Midwest. Built farms, towns, and communities. And quietly became American.